A scribe in Syria is pressing a message into wet clay. He's begging a foreign king for soldiers, for ships, for anything. He finishes the message. He puts it in the kiln to bake. The clay never finishes hardening, because while it's still baking, the city around him is burning to the ground. That tablet was found exactly where he left it, still in the oven, 3,200 years later. It is quite literally the last words of a civilization, cut off mid-sentence by the thing it was trying to warn everyone about. And here's what should scare you. That city, Ugarit, wasn't an isolated tragedy. In the space of about 50 years, almost every major power in the ancient world collapsed. At the same time, the Mycenaeans of Greece, gone. The Hittite Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations on Earth, gone. The Minoans, gone. Dozens of wealthy cities across Cyprus, Syria, and the Levant, burned and never rebuilt. Historians call it the Late Bronze Age collapse. For over a century, nobody could fully explain it. Now we can. And it's not the answer you've probably heard. This is Ancoria. And this is the real story, told through the actual letters these people wrote in their final days. First, you need to understand what the world looked like right before it all went dark. This wasn't a patchwork of isolated kingdoms, it was a fully connected international system. Kings called each other brother in writing. Royal families intermarried across borders. Luxury goods moved thousands of miles by sea. In 1982, a sponge diver off the coast of Turkey stumbled onto a Bronze Age shipwreck. Inside, 10 tons of copper, a full ton of tin, gold, ivory, glass, enough raw metal to arm 5,000 soldiers with bronze swords. Scientists later traced the tin using isotope analysis. A third of it had traveled over 2,000 miles, from mines in what is now Uzbekistan. 2,000 miles, by ship and caravan, before the wheel was even common in most of the world. This was globalization, 3,000 years before the word existed. Which is exactly why, when it broke, it didn't break slowly. It broke everywhere, all at once. So what actually happened? For decades, the answer you'd hear was one word: invaders. A mysterious group called the Sea Peoples swept in and burned everything to the ground. That's still the version most documentaries tell you. It's also, according to most modern historians, wrong. Or at least, dangerously incomplete. Historian Eric Klein has a better name for it. A perfect storm of calamities. Not one disaster. Several. Landing on top of each other. Too fast for anyone to recover between hits. Here's exactly how it stacked. Strike 1. The ground itself turned on them. Geophysicist Amos Noor examined destruction layers at Bronze Age sites across Greece, Turkey, and the Levant. Here's the strange part. Many of these destroyed by invaders cities show zero evidence of human attackers. No arrowheads, no enemy weapons, no burned battle debris. Just collapsed walls, consistent with earthquake damage. Between 1225 and 1175 BC, this region was hit by a rapid cluster of major earthquakes along connected fault lines. Noor and Klein gave it a name: the earthquake storm. Picture every major city sitting on the same fault line, getting hit one after another within a single human lifetime. Strike 2. The sky simply stopped delivering rain. Scientists drilled into the bottom of a salt lake in Cyprus and pulled up sediment cores dating back thousands of years. What they found wasn't a bad season, or a bad year. It was a drought that lasted roughly 300 years. Agriculture in the region completely stopped around 1200 BC, and didn't recover until 850 BC. 300 years is longer than the entire history of the United States. Nobody who was alive when it started was alive to see it end. Nobody could even prove it was happening. It just felt like the harvest got a little worse, every single year, for generations. Strike 3, people were starving, and they wrote about it themselves, not peasants complaining in the margins of history, royalty. The queen of the Hittite Empire wrote directly to the Pharaoh of Egypt, "I have no grain in my lands." The queen. of one of the most powerful empires on the planet, admitting starvation to a foreign court. Egypt's pharaoh, Merneptah, responded by shipping grain to keep the Hittite kingdom alive, possibly the earliest documented act of international famine relief in human history. Meanwhile, in Ugarit, a letter arrived describing a nearby city already dying. "There is famine in your house. We will all die of hunger. You will not see a living soul from your land." That city didn't recover. And then, into a world already cracked open by earthquakes, drought, and starvation, the ships arrived. Egyptian records call them the Sea Peoples, raiders, possibly refugees, sweeping down the coastline as everything around them was already falling apart. The last king of Ugarit, a man named Amurapi, sent a desperate letter to his ally in Cyprus. He admits he'd sent his entire navy away to help defend the Hittites, which meant his own capital had nothing left to defend itself with. "The country is lying open like that," he wrote. Not long after, Ugarit burned, and it was never rebuilt at that scale again. Here's the twist almost nobody tells you. DNA from skeletons in the city of Ashkelon shows a sudden wave of Southern European ancestry appearing right around 1200 BC. Exactly what you'd expect from a Sea Peoples migration, but that genetic signature disappears within 200 years, fully absorbed, gone without a trace, which means the invaders everyone blames for ending the Bronze Age may have simply been refugees, fleeing the exact same drought, the exact same famine, the exact same collapsing world as everyone else. They weren't necessarily the cause. They may have just been the next symptom. If that single fact just rewrote what you thought you knew, that's the whole point of this channel. We take the version of history everyone already knows and show you what the evidence actually says. If that's your kind of thing, subscribe now. Because it's about to get darker. Even the one civilization that won didn't really win. Pharaoh Ramesses III crushed the Sea Peoples in 2 massive battles and carved his victory across the walls of his temple at Medinet Habu. History remembers him as the pharaoh who saved Egypt. But modern CT scans of his mummy reveal something the temple walls never mention: a deep, fatal cut across his throat. He was assassinated in a palace conspiracy not long after his greatest victory. Even Egypt, the one power that technically survived the Bronze Age collapse, never returned to its former strength. So what actually caused it? Not invaders, not one earthquake, not one drought. All of it. Stacked. Inside the same 50 years, a hyper-connected world wired together by trade and diplomacy, where one crisis didn't just wound one kingdom, it rippled through every kingdom depending on it. Sound familiar? Because that's basically a description of the world you live in right now. Global trade, global supply chains, a climate crisis that unfolds slower than any single news cycle can capture. Eric Klein has said plainly that he doesn't study this because it's ancient trivia. He studies it because the same ingredients, interconnection, climate stress, cascading crisis, could happen again. We still don't know exactly who the Sea Peoples really were. We still don't know which crisis tipped the first domino. What we do know is this: the richest, most advanced, most connected civilizations on Earth fell apart in less time than a single human lifetime, and almost no one who lived through the beginning of it saw the end coming. Maybe that's the part that should actually unsettle you. Not that it's ancient, but that it isn't really about the past at all. If you want more stories like this, real history, built on evidence, not myth, subscribe to Ancoria. We go through the letters, the bones, and the ruins, so you don't have to guess what really happened. See you in the next one.